Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Destiny I Process live Google Hangout. My name is Anna Briggs Thompson, and we're currently walking a series about the Destiny I Process, the Destiny principles, and the tools that we are walking in our daily lives, in our processes with Destiny. In today's Hangout, we're discussing redefining words and the living word. And to discuss that, we have invited Sunette Spies from the Destiny Farm in South Africa. Hi, Sunette.
Hi everyone.
So let's get straight into it. Oh, I just want to say that you can ask questions during the Hangout. We'll probably be around 40 minutes through this Hangout. We've decided that we're going to do it this way, that we answer the questions in the end of the Hangout. But you can start asking your questions now, and then we will take them up as we go and give perspectives. But we will only do that at the end of the Hangout. So first we're going to discuss what does it mean to redefine words. And why is it so important? And what does it mean to become the living word and to live words? So, Sunette, do you want to start by sharing with us what does it mean to redefine words?
Okay, so I'll start off with what I have experienced in relation to words and the living of words in my own process. And this specifically in the beginning, where I started becoming aware of the extent to which words define me, and by defining me, I mean like how it related to how I also experience myself, and then based on how I experience myself, I will accordingly like embody the word and live the word and act on the word. So, for example, there was a word where um, how to place it. It's like sometimes we don't even realize that we're living words. I myself, when I was younger, I always felt very inadequate or inferior or not good enough. And it was interesting that those words then came out in relation to, when I was given a particular task or a responsibility. And my immediate reaction to it would be, I can't do it, or, I won't do it, and I'm not even going to try, until, I started becoming aware, but, what am I actually living here in this moment, in the decision that I'm making based on who I am toward something or someone else in my outside world. And this then started opening up the process of, defining and finding out for myself, but what word am I living here? What am I accepting and allowing to be, to experience? So from there, I started doing writing and, just opening up for myself. Okay, what reactions am I going into? What thoughts are coming up? And through that process, I could see, okay, so I'm accepting and allowing the word I'm not good enough, or the words I'm not good enough, or I'm accepting and allowing the words inadequate. And it was interesting because I looked at this process like like we have these little chips, like these little microchips. And imagine that you see this microchip in front of you, and written on that microchip is like the word inadequate. And it's got all the little particles and things like that that it consists of, or that defines the entire chip, as all the thoughts and emotions and things like that that goes with being inadequate. And then you see like these wires coming out of the chip, and it's integrating into your brain and your body and things like that. And that's accordingly defining how you'll live or behave or express yourself as the word. So what I enjoyed about this redefining process was, really taking out that word or that microchip and its wiring, finding out for myself, how was I living the word inadequate? How did I come to accept it? What thoughts and emotions was I accepting and allowing? How was it affecting my behavior? And then from there, taking that step back, I realized that I can change this microchip. I can change the word, and I can change the wiring, and I can change how I am behaving or living and expressing myself. So then I started the redefining of the words. And the redefining is also sometimes where you can either redefine a word, or you can, decide to change it completely, integrate a completely new word. So when it came to tasks or responsibilities, things I perceived to be challenging, I changed inadequacy to, certainty, to confidence, to, allowing myself to learn. So you can take one word, you can take many words. I mean, it depends on yourself and the situation. And so, then my process started where I decided to, anytime the feeling of inadequacy come up, I would say, this is not the word or the microchip or the wiring that I want to access here. I'm going to access the certainty, the allowing myself to learn, the confidence. So I'd start practicing it in moment by moment by moment. So that's the process of the redefining or the changing of words, and then the living and applying of them. Obviously, the living and applying is very important, of course, because you can't just redefine a word or change a word and then think it's going to automatically correct everything of yourself or your living. You have to consciously, or with awareness, you have to change yourself every time you approach a situation or a person or something in your outside world.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say with that you could either change the word completely or change the expression of yourself in relation to what you're walking, or you can redefine the word, because I was looking at it, inadequacy. And so one side of it could be that point of changing how I am, so that instead of seeing myself as inadequate, I become adequate. But then also in terms of redefining such a word, what I found, for example, with comparison is a good example, where comparison is something that's become like very sticky, and where I compare myself to other people. And then as I was walking the Destiny I process, and I was also in the Destiny Farm and discussing with people, and then realizing that comparing can also be something practical. Like inadequate can also be something practical, meaning that this thing or this tool is not yet fully developed, for example. That could be an example of inadequate. So it means it is not yet developed, so I have to add something more to it. Like I have an inadequate proficiency in French, for example. Okay, but then I can go and learn more French. So that inadequate doesn't have to be this, I am inadequate. And then you end there, and you don't move, but that it becomes something practical.
I agree with that. Meaning, it's like the difference between where I would usually then just immediately react in inadequacy, and go into that, the emotions and just wanting to slowly but surely back off from the situation. Like, this is not for me. I really can't do this. So you you become the word on a mind and being and physical level, where once you start taking that step back from words and you see who you are within it and what it does to you, then you also learn that you can actually, shall we say, become the become the directive principle of the word, in the sense that, so whenever inadequacy came up, in any situation, I would go, okay, inadequacy is here. Now I can go into this inadequacy and go through all the thoughts and go through all the emotions, or just use it as a reference. Like, okay, I'm inadequate here, yes, because honestly, I don't know this that I'm walking into. I don't have all the knowledge and information. I might not have yet all the understanding and the tools and things like that. So then inadequacy is simply a cross-reference of, I need to learn more. I need to get to know more. I need to acquire more, knowledge and information. So that was also a very cool experience when, identifying words and redefining them and realizing that, you know, you've got the power to decide who you are in relation to words. That was very, very liberating. You know, just that experience for me in my life, especially in the beginning, that was great.
Well,
So what examples do you have, Anna, of...
Yeah, I was going to say, let's look at some other examples. One point that we discussed before the hangout that I have found very cool. I was about to go to a job interview a couple of years ago, and I was very nervous. Like, I was literally shaking, and like I had it in my head, and like this whole background history of what is a job interview. And I then started, before I went to the job interview, I sat down and I wrote my experiences down, that I was having towards this job interview. And I realized that it wasn't just this job interview I was going to, it was the entire definition of what is a job interview in my mind and how have I experienced it in my life. And I realized that I had seen this job interview as like this, you know, this test of who I am, and I'm coming into this situation being extremely inferior because I want the job and they have the job, and so I have to prove myself. So I was having all of these experiences of actually inadequacy already before walking into the situation, because of these words in my mind being job interview. Job interview equals I'm inferior, basically. Like, this is a situation where I'm automatically inferior. And so I sat down and I wrote out all these experiences, and I realized, well, it doesn't have to be this way. It can be a situation of equality, in that, you know, that they need someone for the job, I need a job, we then meet and see if we can fit together, if I have the skills that they require, but also if that job meets my needs. And so within that, writing it down and redefining how I approached the situation, I could change my experience even before walking into it, so that when I walked into it, I could be clear and stable and not be like desperate either, you know, that, oh my God, they're gonna judge me and I have to prove myself. And also that it's like, it's okay if I don't get the job. That doesn't define me. It doesn't change me. It simply means, okay, I was not right for the position, or they wanted something else, and that's okay. So that was, as you were saying before, very empowering, because especially such a situation that every time I would walk into a job interview, I would be so nervous that I actually couldn't even, you know, present myself in an effective way and share, this is who I am, this is my skills, take it or leave it.
But what's also coming through with saying that, what's important as well is, remember I said in the beginning where, you know, you kind of have to take that chip and the wiring out. You have to see exactly how it is that you are living a word now, to be able to read effectively redefine it or change the word. So like you said, it's very important that you do the writing and the introspection and investigation into seeing for yourself, what's the thoughts involved, you know, what's the emotions, what of the job interview is affecting me, what exactly am I reacting to. It's like you need to get into that detail. So it's like in that principle of know thyself, in who and how you are right now in relation to a job interview, because then you've got all the detail, the entire chip, the entire programming, to be able to rechip it and reprogram it and you know, and change the entire relationship to a word, and then your outside world. I don't know if this is also what you found. Like, have you found that effectiveness in relation to getting to know the word as it exists, to be able to then redefine it and change it?
Yes, very, very much. And I would say that it's actually something that I find very enjoyable, because, you know, we live our lives, and before Destiny, I had no idea how powerful words were and how much go into them. You know, I was just
Yeah.
living and talking and reacting to words without any care about, you know, what I was doing. I had no idea. And so when I started participating with Destiny
Yeah.
and I started realizing how important our words are and how much they define who we are and how we live and
Mm.
how we experience ourselves, it then became also
Yeah.
like it's grounding. You know, when I see, okay, I have a reaction to a word, or there's a word I'm not living and I don't understand why, and I then go and investigate it. And investigate it also means just looking up the definition in a dictionary, because maybe I had a completely different understanding of the word, or
Mm.
sometimes I didn't even know what the word means. And then what I also do is to go and look at the origin of the word. And then I find maybe, okay, it comes from the 14th century Latin, and it's constructed out of a prefix and a suffix, a root. And, you know, it's like walking the back through history, back to the origin. And
Mm.
oftentimes, not with all words, but with some words, they have these like very basic, concrete definitions that kind of expresses the essence of the word in a practical sense, but where throughout
Yeah.
history the
Yeah.
word has been made like intellectual or abstract, and you don't really know what it means, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's floating in you, but you can't really settle it within yourself. And so doing that, it's like
Okay.
I can ground the word within me. Now I understand what it means, where it comes from, or even
Okay.
my own history. Like, you know, my mom reacted to that word. Aha, okay. So, and then, like you were saying, when you then write about it, then you can start working with it. But if you don't even understand what it means, or like how you've lived the word, it also becomes difficult to redefine it. So, do you have any
Yeah.
other examples?
So I do have one. I think this is what some women might be able to relate to. Or I mean, even the guys out there as well. The one word also quite early on in my process that I worked with was the word myrrh, right? You know, standing there in the mornings, getting ready for work or ready to go out, and I would stand in front of the mirror, and I mean, my thoughts would go crazy, and I would already like start becoming emotional, because it's like in the mirror as well, you can kind of control your, shall we say, your self-perfection dynamics, and like standing either really really close to the mirror or standing really far, you know, doing all the all the distance movements to kind of see, you know, what distance do you look better, and then you try and go closer, and you know, so it was like quite a story, the mirror. All right. So then I obviously got to a stage where I was like, this is enough. You know, I hadn't even started my day, and I'm already exhausted by just everything that came up in my head, and my emotions and things. So, and I was like, I'm going to redefine this situation, redefine the word mirror, and then every morning or whenever I'm in front of the mirror, I'm going to apply the redefinition, like live it. And this is also a very important point, I found, is that when you're redefining a word, it's like you're also you're making a statement, you're making a commitment, a decision for yourself. You know, and if you don't apply that and live that, it's like, you know, you are in a way also compromising your own self-trust, you know, where you said you're going to do something, but then you don't. So, meaning, I took the word mirror and I was like, it's only me here in front of the mirror, practically checking up on, you know, the basic things, getting dressed, checking if, you know, what I'm wearing is all, you know, in alignment and correct. Is my face clean? Is my teeth clean? Do I look ready for a particular position that I need to be in? And that's it. You know, so I made the mirror definition purely physical and purely practical. I like really broke it down for myself, only checking up on certain things that I really need to, and that's it. Now, obviously, in the beginning, it's not easy because you still have all these thoughts running and all these emotions running. And then I would do self-forgiveness inside myself, you know, as I'm in front of the mirror, anything comes up, I forgive it, I breathe, and I just move myself into the redefinition. You know, Sunette, only check the physical things. That's it. Quickly, just check everything good. Great, let's go. So that was a very cool process. You know, the redefinition and then the living of a word. It takes time. I mean, it took me a couple of months, you know, to get to a point where I finally realized, hey, you know, I'm standing in front of the mirror and it's, whoa, it's actually quite cool now. You know, there was nothing coming up inside my head or, you know, in my emotions and things. It was just practical. So that's also another example, you know, in taking something as simple as that, redefining it, and then immediately living and applying the correction.
So why is it so important, would you say, to live the word? Why isn't it enough to redefine it? Like, couldn't that be some, you know, like a magic spell or an affirmation? Now I'm going to live this, and then it could just automatically happen.
And I'd say if this process was so easy, you know, I think we would have just kind of, you know, messaged it to all of humanity, you know, just say, speak this word, redefine it, you know, and you'd be an awesome person that wants to change the world and take care of people and the animals and nature and stuff like that. It would have been awesome. But no, if you have a look, okay, if I have a look at the mirror point, for example, how long did it take me to have to actually create the thoughts that I did think in an instant, or the amount of emotions that was involved, you know, the moment I'd stand in front of the mirror? It started happening from when I was a teenager, you know, when I started becoming aware of my body and my looks and you know, the other girls and kids in school, you know, you become self-conscious. So from then on, up until, you know, my late teens, all those years, living the same thoughts, you know, believing the thoughts, acting on them, accepting them, allowing them, you know, it accumulated over the years into where it became just automatic. The moment I stand in front of the mirror, it's like all those things come rushing back in one moment. So this is why the change process, you know, is quite the same, in that it's not something that the redefining of the word and the living it is going to happen like that. You have to walk through essentially months or sometimes years of things that you have conditioned into yourself. So that's why it's a process. But the process is a lot faster. Meaning, if I look, it was from my early teens to my late teens that this mirror point was programmed in. But yet I could walk it into correction within a couple of months because I was walking the correction in awareness every single morning. Every single time I was in front of that mirror, I had that point of dedication, like forgiveness, breathing, changing myself. So it's got a lot to do how fast you'll change. It depends on your commitment, your discipline, and your application.
Yeah, and I would also say that it's also about that we change who we are in relation to the word. So it's not that we can, you know, redefine the word.
Yeah.
Now it means something completely different, and then that's, you know, kind of us. We have to actually, because it's big, like you said before with the chip point, like we've microchipped it into us. So the way that we've lived and defined the word, you know, that will still be there until we change our behavior and our actions. So that's an important part of it.
No, we're definitely not completely changing words. No. It's a mirror is a mirror, you know, inadequacy is inadequacy. As the words exist in the world, that's an important point, Anna. It's about additionally just having a look at your personal relationship to the word. and how, if a word is compromising you, how you can change your relationship to it, or, assist and support yourself to live another word that can more contribute to who you are and how you live. So yeah, do you want to look at that's more like general life experiences? Do you also want to look at the internal redefinition of words? Shall we
Yes.
start with that as well?
Yes, let's do that. And then also, I
Okay.
want to remind you guys that you can ask questions. It would be cool if you would start asking them now if you have any questions. So, like, if there are words you've been looking at redefining, or if you have any questions about redefining words, ask them and we will give perspectives. You can obviously also ask on the Destiny Forum and we will give more perspective there. So yeah, let's look at
Yeah.
changing words inside ourselves or in our own personal process. Do you have any examples of that?
Okay. Yes, there's two that were really very definitive. But I'll first share the one. There was, interestingly enough, there's one person in my life for quite some time, and for some reason, every time I'd see this person, I would immediately like go into this defense mode, and become like worked up and almost anticipating conflict. And it was interesting because obviously what came up within me is all these excuses and reasons and justifications for why I'm anticipating conflict, based on previous interactions with this person. And the memories, some of the memories come up like, ooh, like the memory is saying, hey, do you remember this person and the conflict you've had with him in the past and how much conflict you had with him? Kind of like, working with me in this point of wanting to keep a conflictual relationship with this person. And then I'd immediately go into defense. I'd immediately like start breathing very slowly and heavily and like just anticipating, okay, something bad is going to happen if the two of us are going to talk now. So eventually, and this is something that everyone can also look at in their process where, I mean, when I changed this point, I was like, why didn't I just change it sooner? How and why do we sometimes let things drag out for so long? And because this was like, it was going on for quite a while until I've had enough, because I didn't like how I was experiencing myself. And obviously now I was walking Destiny for quite some time, I realized, I cannot blame that person. I was always walking up to them. It's not like they've got psychic sensors that's sending, all these memories and messages of, hey, you must now react in conflict toward me or become defensive or I'm coming at you. It was nothing to do with them. It was coming up in my own mind. So then I was like, okay, how would I like to experience myself with this person? And then I was like playing with a point, and I was like, okay, so what usually comes up is conflict. So let me take it to another extreme. I would like to approach this person with gentleness. So it was like, okay. And obviously I did my writing and forgiveness on, why it is that I defined my relationship to this person as being conflictual and having to be defensive and anticipating something bad is going to happen. And then I started taking the word gentleness, redefining gentleness. How would I express that and live that? How does the word gentleness feel to me? And then starting with gentleness and the experience thereof, how does it feel? I would take the word and I would just feel it inside myself, breathe it, let it resonate in my body, just to get a feel for it, to know, how to access the word and become it. Then I looked at, okay, to speak in a more stable voice, speak in a softer voice, relax my body when I'm approaching this person. So then the next day, I started practicing this. And so over time, what was interesting was that we hadn't had a conflict in the same way that we had in the past, when I kept on approaching this person with the anticipation of conflict or, being defensive in my voice, in my behavior toward them. So just with me changing, it changed our entire dynamics. And it was very interesting because from there, a much more intimate relationship developed, something that I would have never have anticipated or expected to happen. And that was quite a gift, you know, when looking back at if I didn't change myself, you know, what I would have missed in my life with this person. So, you know, it's little things like this. You wouldn't think that changing one word could actually change an entire relationship, and even more than that later on as well. So that's more like an internal point that I changed and redefined, and you know, also living a new word for myself, which changed my outside world completely.
It's quite a humbling process.
Yeah,
when you realize the
definitely.
power of one
I was
word,
very grateful.
and then considering
Yeah,
all the words and how we just use words, you know, like very casually. Oh, it's just words.
yeah.
It becomes a completely different relationships to words in general. Well, I can share. I've recently, and I'm actually walking this for myself at the moment, so it's very current. I've been investigating and exploring the word ambition. This is one of the words where
Mm-hmm.
it came up as a change. Like I am starting to implement this word to change a behavioral pattern that I'm not satisfied with, where I'm not effective. So this was a form of complacency and like apathy. And I was actually investigating aspects of masculinity, and then this word ambition came up as this very, in my mind, very masculine word, that men are ambitious. And the way that I came to that word in this way was through this realization of myself, that I've defined myself as a female as being not ambitious, as being not having any goals or aspirations. And then I started looking at the word ambition and like realizing that I've never really dealt with it. It wasn't part of my life growing up. I don't remember the word ambition ever being spoken, or my mother saying anything about being ambitious. But then at the same time, I could also see that I did have a relationship with the word. It wasn't like completely strange to me, but it was more something conflictual that I saw as being very manly. And I had both like negative and positive reactions towards it. Negative being, you know, that ambition, you have to be cynical and you have to, you know, not care about people. And then on the positive, it was like I looked up to people that are ambitious. And so in this entire process, I looked at, okay, how can I implement the word ambition into my process in terms of becoming self-directed, and stop being complacent, and stop devaluing myself with what I realized as being part of defining myself as a woman. Um, so it was this word that I saw that males lived, but that I hadn't lived. And then I looked at one of the points that I looked at, I found very interesting, which I only realized because I sat down and wrote about it. I wouldn't have realized it if I hadn't done that introspection, was that to have ambition, you have to have a certain sense of self-value and self-worth, because ambition has to do with looking into the future and seeing what is possible, and then having the courage and the guts and the will to go for it. But in how I have valued myself in my life, like I never even considered that I could value myself. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's like I took the word, and instead of going this, because I could also have done like, okay, I'm gonna be like a man and I'm gonna be ambitious, you know, and integrate that definition. But I looked at how can I apply it in the way that will support me the most. And so then I went and I looked up
Yeah, yeah.
the origin of the word, and it comes from the word ambient, which means to go around. And I was like, okay, but what does that have to do with ambition? Go around. And then I looked, okay, but it could be something coming full circle. And I saw this point of how ambition, within how I can apply it, is that I see the potential of what is possible, what I can become. Like that, seeing that is like the first step. If I don't see that, then I cannot move to that potential. So I have to value myself. And then making that decision to go and manifest that potential is then how I can make that. That's then going around, like going full circle. And so in that way, I could work with a word that hasn't really been a part of my life, but at the same time, I had a lot of reactions towards it, and then make it something supportive. So, and like we were talking about previously, very empowering.
Yeah, that's as you mentioned as well. I mean, I find like so many people as well, I mean, in my personal life and that I've also worked with throughout the years, is that point of we tend to just accept, you know, that this is who I am and this is how I am, and that's it. But when you start with understanding how words work and how we have and how you can change yourself through that, you know, so much about yourself within and without starts changing. And I mean, I've experienced it in myself as well, you know, early on in my life, you know, when you've got that that it feels like you've got tape like all around your body and you're like completely taped in. Like I felt like so constricted and claustrophobic in a way within who I was and how I was. But when I started changing my like relationship to words and the living of them, it felt like I could start breathing. You know, it felt like something was awakening within me. And I mean, your process with words starts only changing within yourself, but then slowly but surely you just start naturally changing in your expression, in your behavior, in your communication, in your relationships. I mean, I really sometimes look back at how I was when I was, you know, teenager to who I am and how I live now, you know, and the process that I have walked and that I know I've done this for myself, by myself, with the support and assistance of everyone else. But you know, it's a real self-creation process, and you can see the evidence thereof for yourself. And that's what's also something that's what's quite amazing about this for me as well. But what is important is to always make it very practical, like Anna with the ambition point as well. And you have to give yourself practical markers within your life, you know, not just to have the words be these airy-fairy, beautiful things that sound good, you know, because that's not going to help. You know, I could, for example, take my relationship to the mirror or take my relationship to the inadequacy or the conflict that I've faced in those three examples that I've given. And I could have made it like sound so beautiful and magnificent and things like that in relation to redefining words or using new words, but it wouldn't have done anything in my practical change process. So you have to make sure that when you're redefining words, you redefine them and make them as practical as possible for yourself. And how are you going to change yourself in real time as you face things in your life? Like I think the mirror example is a good one, you know, where just change it to focusing on my body, focusing on what I'm wearing, and that's it. Making sure everything's clean and neat, and that's it. You know, that's something practical. So make sure that it's always realistic things that you can change and do and live.
Yeah, that's a cool point.
So
yeah, for example, with the word ambition, it's more like a relationship I have to myself. So I have to actually say, okay, now that I decided that ambition means to see my potential and going after it, what does that then practically mean? How can I live that? That's a very good point. And then also, just I wanted to mention before we go to the questions, that what is really cool about redefining words is that it it kind of solidifies or grounds the process of change. Because, you know, when we look at, oh my God, I'm so inadequate, and when we look at like problems in our lives, it can be so like abstract and difficult to grasp how to change it. But when you have specific one word at a time, it's very concrete. You know, you start with one word and then you go from there. It makes the process of change so much more practical in and of itself.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go to the questions?
Yes, let's do so.
Okay, do you have the app open on your side?
I do.
Okay, so let's take the first question from Andrea, and she's asking, what about words that are really negative and you can't define them as living words?
I think this line in relation to redefining words, where we look at the real negative words that, I mean, some commonsensically you can look at them and say these aren't redefinable, they just purely are what they are. That Anna and I can do another hangout in relation to such words that contain more of a genuine, shall we say, negative or bad connotation and embodiment and manifestation in the mind and in reality, because that's more of a process that you'll have to walk in relation to the existence of such words.
Okay.
If you're up for it, Anna.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so let's take the next one. It is a comment from James, and he's saying, this isn't a question, I just want to say that I recently have come to understand what you're saying here and how important it is. Thanks for sharing. Cool,
Thanks, James.
And then we have a comment from Daryl, and he's saying, self-creation, that's a great word to contemplate.
Yes.
And there's actually a series being walked right now on eQuaf from Anu, where he's specifically talking about the words creation, creator, and create.
Yes.
So suggest to go and check that out. Let's see more. Then we have a question from Dan, and he's asking, how about defining a new word from the get-go to prevent a consequential relationship? Do either of you have an experience like this?
Defining a new word from the get-go.
So maybe, yeah, I'm not sure what you mean, Dan.
So,
do you mean,
Dad, if you can give us an example
do you mean like
what you
creating
mean.
new words? Yeah, so if you can give us
I think what is maybe also looking at is like, if you take a word and you know, instead of having a look at how it exists now, or you know, what your relationship is to it now, to not even look at anything else, you just look at the word purely for what it is, and you just redefine it and you just immediately go out and live it. If that is what you meant, Dan, I think again the step that you'd be missing if you do that is getting to know yourself. You know, you need to know how it is that you are living a word right now. How does the word exist right now? I mean, I suppose you can do it if, for example, you do come across a new word and you see that this word does not exist at all in yourself or in your life. You know, then you can immediately go to the step of how do I want to live this word? How am I going to add it into me and my life? You know, then it would be cool. But if it is about a word that is already existing and you can see its consequences and outflows and relationships and connections, then first know thyself, then redefine and change.
Yeah, he is saying, like Anna, you were talking about ambition, something that is new to you, which is what Sunette was talking about.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
add, however, that what I found is that throughout my process, I have within my mind tend to lure myself and go like, but I don't have a problem with that word, or I don't like. I've many
Oh,
times
yeah.
I've had such thoughts, like maybe with the word ambition, and only when I actually started the process of investigating it did I realize it's not like I haven't had a relationship to it, because even though it wasn't part of my family as such, it still exists in the world, and I have created a relationship to the word. So I would say that
Yeah,
from
yeah.
my experience, it is very few words that we don't have a relationship with. And like Sunette, you were saying, then cool, then you can go straight to the redefinition. But what I would also say is that, like let's say I had never come across the word ambition before, and then I go and investigate it. It's also not to be afraid of the definitions that are in the world, like as though it could taint me.
Yeah, yeah,
I can still, even though I can
yeah.
investigate how others have related to the word, it doesn't have to mean that I have to define myself according to that. Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense. So you can expand yourself and your world through researching the word and looking at just self-honesty. Are you clear in relation to the word?
Yes. Okay, and then we have a question from Andrea, and she's saying, "Hi, Sunette, can you explain when people call you names, the process you took me through about taking in others' words, which I found very assisting." So maybe that's one for the next hangout.
Yes, we'll do that for the next hangout, where we're gonna expand on all the words and have a look at various ways in which you can change your relationship to words.
Andrea, if you could do me a favor, or actually we can see the question afterwards, then I'll bring it to the next hangout. Then we have a comment from Rebecca, and then we are about to finish for today. She's first saying, "Is it not to realize overall that words are sound?" Sorry, I'm just going to select the question here. "And as such, something that moves and moves us. Thus, word becomes this movement, sound, form as us. But inherent in this our information that is changeable by nature." They answered my questions.
Okay.
Talking about change.
Yeah, I think, remember, today we basically, in relation to words, only had to look at the redefining and the living. Obviously, words are so much more as well. And, we can definitely, in time to come, also look at sound, because obviously that's also very important. I found as well in how I can measure my relationship to a word based on how I speak it, and when I speak it, how the sound resonates through me and my physical body. So we can walk quite a nice journey in our relationship to words in some hangouts to come, definitely.
Cool. So that's it. There are no more questions. Is there anything else you want to add here before we finish for today?
I'd say I'm satisfied, Anna. I really enjoyed myself because it's a fascinating process. And yourself? Anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. It's cool that we're gonna walk maybe some more deeper dimension in another hangout, so that we can probably expand on it, and also the complexities that may be involved. So we will keep your questions for the next hangout. So thank you so much, everyone, for asking questions. And remember, on Saturday we have the movie night hangout. Every Saturday we have started a series of movie hangouts with Joanna Jesus and Victor Pearson. And this coming Saturday, it is the Danish series Borgen that we will be talking about. And as the Danish representative of Destiny, I will be on the hangout. So we will see you on Saturday and next Thursday for another DIP hangout. Bye, everyone.